Oh, what's going on, guys? 8-Bit Glitch 79 here, and you're watching Captain Algebra.
Hey everybody, Captain Algebra here, and it is finally 2022, which means it is time for me to discuss all the games that I beat this past year in 2021. Now last year I beat 150 games, and I knew I was not going to get anywhere near that again, so I didn't really want to set a number for myself this year. I just wanted to play the games I wanted to play. I wanted to dive into a little bit more longer games, because I'd played a lot of shorter games to get to 150 last year. And I played quite a few good games. So why don't we get into that right now? I got my eggnog, and if you don't have a glass, you should grab some, because eggnog's fantastic. Alright. Now that that's taken care of, we got our first sip of eggnog. Let's get into the games I beat. So first, we got 3 systems that I beat 1 game for. We're going to start on the DS, and it is The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass. So big Zelda fan, I wanted to get into these DS games. I've heard they weren't that good. And it took a while to get used to using the stylus to move around and to attack and everything. But honestly, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. A little repetitive, going back to the same dungeon over and over again. But I thought it was pretty good. So I am actually excited to start Spirit Tracks at some point this year. Then, for the Sega Master System, we beat RType. So I got really into shooters the last couple years. But I'd never gotten into the RType series, so I really wanted to try it. And I really enjoyed the game, but man, the end of that game is brutal. It's very, very tough, especially like the slowdown, their screen flickering. It's very annoying trying to see all the enemies, but we made it through, barely. So now I'm excited to try out the other games in the series. And then for the Game Boy Color, Wario Land 3. So this one I just played recently. I grew up with the first Wario Land on Game Boy, absolutely loved it. And then last year I played Wario Land 2, so like, well, should probably try Wario Land 3. And it was very good for the most part. I thought it got a little too repetitive, kind of got boring, since to get all the treasures, you basically have to go to every level 4 times, because there's 4 treasure chests in each one. And sometimes you have to unlock all their power-ups, or you have to do something in a different level to cause something to change in a previous level. So it's a lot of backtracking, a lot of repeating levels, and I didn't love that. And again, one of the big things that bothered me with Wario Land 2 that happens in Wario Land 3 is you can't die. I don't know, that always just bothered me in games. Like, give me a challenge, right? I mean, you hit an enemy, it just knocks you back. Or maybe they'll transform you a little bit, and you have to wait till you get back to normal. And so it makes boss fights really annoying, because yeah, you can't die, but if the boss fight hits you in a certain way, you'll get knocked out of that fight with them, and you have to climb your way back up. So super annoying. Overall good game, just kind of overstayed its welcome. Alright, continuing on, we are now at the systems that I beat 2 games for each. We're going to talk about GameCube next. First game I don't actually own, and it is Beach Spikers Volleyball. So back in August, I went to visit Gaming Off the Grid at their place, and one of the nights Robert was busy, so Wes and I just hung out playing games, and we decided to play Beach Spikers Volleyball. It's a game they've played a ton on their channel, and it is a fantastic sand volleyball arcade game. So much fun. The game is very addicting. It just makes you want to keep playing over and over and over again. And, you know, towards the end of the matches, it gets kind of tough. You almost have to play perfectly, but we got it done. I would love to do a no-death run in that game. It's so much fun. And then the other GameCube game I played this year, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Battle Nexus.
Thought I'm only good with a blade? Wrong again.
Let's go! Fuck this game. Right up the ass.
And those of you that saw me stream this know exactly how I feel about this game. Can't stand it. Oh my god, is it bullshit. So many annoying things about that game. I wanted to play it because I loved the first game that I played back on PS2 when it first came out. And this one you can unlock the arcade game of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But unfortunately, it takes a long time to unlock it, and honestly, I don't think it's really worth it. So it's an okay game. I had a problem with it, but I know other people that didn't. So maybe it was just me. Maybe it's because I played it on GameCube. The other people I know played it on PS2. So we'll see. Next, we got 2 arcade games. So obviously I don't have those with me. First one was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game that I beat after I beat Battle Nexus. So I beat that game. I wanted to get the bad taste out of my mouth, and I hadn't played the arcade game in years. And so I fired it up, played it, loved it. Unfortunately, They did lose some of the rights to music and stuff, so that changed, but it's still a fun playthrough. I also did beat this game at MoGameCon at Two Plumbers Brewery and Arcade. I believe it was with Wes, Robert, and then Brian Newland, all from Gaming Off the Grid, and that was a hell of a lot of fun.
Another victory at Two Plumbers Arcade with my boy Wes. Robert helped out a little bit, not really, and then Newland.
I was just here.
He was just here. Fucking another victory. Let's go.
And then the second arcade game I beat was also at MoGameCon at Two Plumbers with Peter Bateman, and I beat Jurassic Park: The Lost World.
Played some Jurassic Park: The Lost World with Peter Bateman, Waves and Games.
What's up, Wave Riders?
We
We totally just beat this game.
We fucking crushed it. High five, buddy. Yes, we killed it. Such a fun game.
This game was fantastic. Such a fun shooter. And obviously, you know, we just had to keep pumping credits in, but we had a really good time with it. I had never played it before. Big fan of it. I suggest if you ever see Jurassic Park: Lost World arcade game, try it out. All right, next on the 3DS, first one we've got is Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. So a big fan of the Arkham series, and I've had this one in my collection for a while. I was like, okay, I want to try this out. It's pretty good. It's not as good as the other games in the series. I think the 3DS kind of holds it back. I felt like I got lost more in this game. It was just sometimes hard to tell where you could go and what you could go through and stuff. Overall, it's still a pretty good game. And then the other one was Ocarina of Time 3D. Ocarina of Time is one of my favorite Zelda games of all time. I did not grow up with it. My buddy had it back in high school, and we played a little bit, but I just wasn't a Zelda fan back then. I finally ordered it back in college and got into it, and absolutely loved it. So since then, I've beat it multiple times on that, but I was like, you know what, I want to play the 3D version on the 3DS, and it was fantastic. It was so fun going back to revisit that game. It's just a classic. Then we got the Wii U. We've got Lego Avengers. Big fan of the Lego games, and I want to kind of give my Wii U a little bit of love, you know? I love the console, but I don't really play it that much. And I was like, well, I haven't played Lego Avengers. I loved Lego Superheroes when I first played that one on the Xbox 360, so I was like, I'll try this out. Another great Lego game. If you love Marvel, if you love Lego, you got to play that game. Then we played Ducktales Remastered. Love the Ducktales game on the NES, and I was like, I need to finally sit down and play the remastered version, and it is fantastic. So good. If you love DuckTales on the NES, you're going to love the remastered version. It's very, very good. Definitely play it. And we got two games on the Wii. First one was the Blob. So this one has been sitting in my collection for a while. It's finally like, let's see how it is. And it is actually pretty good. It's a very relaxing game. It's one of those games you can just throw in, chill, maybe even, you know, listen to other music while you're playing, or listen to podcasts or other YouTube videos or live streams, and just chill. And your goal is to go around each area and paint it colors, because the I don't remember, the Gray Corporation, something like that, has turned everything shades of gray. So you have to recolorize the world. It's fun. I don't think I 100%ed it, but it'd be an easy game to 100%. It just takes a while. And then the other one was Batman, the Brave and the Bold. I've always heard this was a good game, and it is a very solid beat 'em up. You obviously play as Batman and Robin, and I think you can unlock other characters as you go. I basically stuck with Batman for the most part, just because I liked his moveset more than others. But it's just a fun little beat 'em up. I've heard the 3DS or the DS version is also good. I have not played that, only this version. But if you like beat 'em ups, you like Batman, it's a good game. And then we got two games on the TurboGrafx 16. First one, the Legendary Axe.
Yes. Fuck yes. One credit clip. Right, 21. I love the final looking boss, or the end boss.
This game is phenomenal. A very good old hack, old style hack and slash. I don't love the whole, like, you need to wait for your power to be full before you attack. I don't like that in games. Makes it especially annoying on boss fights, but it was actually a pretty solid game. It really reminds me of Astyanax on the NES. Both are very good games. I beat Astyanax last year. If you have a TurboGrafx or a way to play TurboGrafx games, Legendary Axe is definitely a must-play. And then, Splatterhouse.
Game. Let's go.
Just picked this up at Midwest Gaming Classic. I've been wanting this game for years, and it is phenomenal. Such a fun game on the TurboGrafx. I just love the atmosphere. I love the gore. The sprites are fantastic. They just did a really nice job with this game. It honestly was not as hard as I was expecting. For some reason, I thought it was tougher. I borrowed it from Mega Dan a few years ago, and I just played it here and there, and I never got too far. I think I got to these floating heads, and for some reason I played it like once and I couldn't get past it. So sat down on stream, beat it first try, and it is fantastic. If you like the Splatterhouse series, you gotta play it. All right, next we got the Xbox 360 that I beat 3 games for. First one, Bioshock Infinite. So I played the first 2 games in the series years ago and loved them. And I'd started Bioshock Infinite multiple times. I always got sidetracked by something else. Wasn't that I didn't enjoy the game, I just got sidetracked. Finally, I was like, nope, we gotta sit down and finish this game, and it was fantastic. Probably the best game in the series. Absolutely loved the story. It was super engaging. I kept wanting to come back to it. If you like Bioshock, you gotta play it. Then we got the next one, which I believe was for Cartridge Club Game of the Month, and that's Ghostbusters, the video game. So I'd always heard good things about this. With Cartridge Club playing it, gave me an excuse to finally sit down and play it, and it was so much fun. It feels like a sequel to the first 2 Ghostbusters movies. You know, it just feels like you're playing the 3rd movie, and it is so much fun. The game looks great. Obviously, there's multiple versions. I think there's a Wii version, there's a PS2 version. I really like the 360 version, but I would, I think, like to get the remastered versions on PS4, Switch. I think it's on those. So really cool game. And then last one, Dantes Inferno. So I actually got this game on PS3 a couple years ago from Mega Dan, but I didn't have a PS3 yet. And so I grabbed it on 360. And I love God of War. It's my favorite franchise of all time. And everyone said Dantes Inferno is a lot like it. So I was like, I gotta sit down and play it. And it is very, very good. Still like God of War more, but this game was so much fun. Just brutal, hack and slash, gory, everything you want in these types of games. Boss fight at the end was kind of annoying. I remember Chris Pico, he saw that I beat it, and like a couple months later, he's sending me messages, dude, how do you beat this final boss? And it's pretty funny. It's tough at the end, but it's a very good game. It's too bad that the sequels were canceled. Next up on the PS1, we beat 4 games. First one, VIP, starring Pamela Anderson. So this is just a funny, basically quick time event game. You just gotta hit the correct buttons to attack the guys who are trying to kill you. It's not very long. It is not a great game, but it's kind of fun to play through once. Next, we've got WWF In Your House. I actually got this for Christmas in 2020, and I absolutely love WrestleMania, the arcade game, growing up. And so, you know, this is a sequel to it. Finally want to sit down and play it, and it is so much fun. I love those arcade-style wrestling games. But it did remind me how much I hate the handicap matches. Man, are those bullshit. But such a fun game. Next, we've got Legacy of Kane Soul Reaver. So I've had this in my collection for years. I remember always wanted to play it because I actually had it on a demo that I got back in the day for PlayStation 1. But it just sat in my collection. Never really decided to play it until for Chris Pico and Corpse Flood Gaming's podcast, the Super Neighbor Brothers. It ended up being one of my backlog roulette games, so I finally sat down and played it. It's a really fun game. Now I gotta try the other games in the series. And then finally, Silent Hill. This was another one that came up for backlog roulette. So I've actually had this game in my collection probably since I started collecting. I went to Half Price Books one day, and they actually had it for like $5. So it's got the manual and the disc. It doesn't actually have the case art and stuff, so I'm missing that. But I figured for $5, it was a damn good deal. And I absolutely loved it. I like Resident Evil more, but I thought this was a fantastic game. Great atmosphere. I really like the story. It just was super cool to play. And you would think sometimes you go back to the PS1, N64 era, sometimes those games can seem hard to play, but I thought it was pretty easy to get into. You know, I don't mind tank controls because I've played games like that so much. So really excited to get into the other games in the series. I believe I have Silent Hill 2 on the Xbox. So maybe I'll play that this year. Next, we got 4 games on the Game Boy Advance, and the first one is another backlog roulette game, Star Wars Flight of the Falcon. So, huge Star Wars fan, and I've been wanting to play that for a while. It's a decent game. It's just basically a flight game. You're in different vehicles flying through each stage. Gets kind of annoying at the end. I don't know, maybe it's because I was playing on the Game Boy player on the GameCube, so it was on the big screen, and obviously that makes it not look as good as it did on the Game Boy Advance. But the final mission was super annoying, but we made it through. And then played a bunch of Turtles games this month or this year for Turtles Month for part of the Cartridge Club. And so the next one we did was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Boom. Damn Guts with the assist. Thank you, Damn Guts. I would not have thought about using that because I didn't think it was working very well.
Very fun beat 'em up. I really liked that one. And then we did TMNT. Ooh, thank you.
That it? This is it? Wow. It's ridiculously easy. We didn't even get to level 3.
Another good beat 'em up. I think I liked Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles better. I thought it was a better game, but it was a tougher final boss. The TMNT final boss was a big pushover, but both very good games. And finally, Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3. Super Mario Bros. 3 is my favorite Mario game of all time. Absolutely love it. And so I decided to play through the Game Boy Advance version. It's very good. I loved the e-reader games that you could play. Obviously, on the Kart, it doesn't have all of them. You actually need the e-reader cards. But I think the game on the Wii U, I think EC Myers Vids told me that you can download that game on there. And it actually has all the e-reader card levels on there. So I'm definitely got to grab that because those levels are so much fun because, you know, they're new Mario Level 3 or Mario Brothers 3 games. Levels that you haven't played before. So very, very cool. All right, next we got the PS2 that I beat 7 games for. First one we got is Grand Theft Auto 3. So the first Grand Theft Auto game I actually played was Vice City. I don't know how I played it. I don't know if I just got it for a birthday or something. And I loved it. So then I went back and bought Grand Theft Auto 3. And I brought it to school one day because we were going to play it before Pep Band. And I left that game there and it got stolen. So then I finally got it back a few years ago and I was like, I gotta go back and play Grand Theft Auto 3. And I really liked it. It's good. It's obviously after you play Vice City and San Andreas, it's hard to go back to that because obviously that was the first 3D Grand Theft Auto game and it's still rough around the edges. But all the good core gameplay from the other Grand Theft Auto games is there and it was fun. So I'm glad I finally sat through that one. Next we got is Kim Possible, What's the Switch? So one night I'll just look through my games, like, what game do I want to play? Let's try What's the Switch. I've heard it's pretty good. It's a solid beat 'em up. It's pretty easy, a little slow, but it was all right. And we got Burnout 3 Takedown. Such an amazing arcade racer. If you've played the Burnout series, you know how good that game is. Especially that one introduced Crash Mode, which is phenomenal. So I went through and I got medals in every single race. I was going to do gold, but towards the end it gets pretty annoying. It gets pretty tough trying to get gold on some of the burning laps, especially when you get the Indy car unlocked. So I think I got gold in all but 5. So maybe I can go back and do that sometime, but it's so much fun. I kind of wish I didn't go and do all the crash modes first. Every time a crash mode was unlocked, I always did that. And I saved like the racing ones for last. And that was kind of a mistake because those are definitely harder. But it's such a good game. We got the Simpsons Hit and Run. Love this game. I've never actually sat down and finished it, but I used to play it a bunch. My brother, I think, had it on the GameCube when we were growing up. And I just like how it's kind of like a GTA-style Simpsons game, obviously with more emphasis on driving. I was going to 100% this game and buy all the costumes and everything, but man, it gets super tough at the end. Like, where I was like getting annoyed with the game. I was like, come on, this is a Simpsons game. This should be fun. Overall, it was good, but I just didn't feel like going back and finding enough coins to buy everything. But it's pretty fun. If you like The Simpsons, you gotta try it. We got iNinja.
Stop getting hit, please. Oh my god. Is that it? He's falling over. I think that's it.
So this, I believe, was requested by J Chip Show, and I've always heard good things about the game, and it is a very, very fun 3D action platformer on the PS2. It's also on the GameCube. If you have it, definitely suggest playing it. And we've got another backlog roulette game, Metal Gear Solid 3. So I absolutely love the first 2 Metal Gear Solid games. I grew up playing those, but I never did get 3. And this one, I always hesitated to play because I didn't like the whole fact like you had to like eat food and stuff to keep yourself going. And I don't know, I didn't like the whole being outside environment. It just seemed too open world for me, even though it's not that open world, you know. But it was just different than the first two games. But it was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. I know Wes from Game Me Off the Grid suggested it. He said it's his favorite game in the series. And, you know, he's got pretty good taste. So I was like, yep, we're going to play it. And it was actually really cool. I did enjoy it. A lot of fun boss fights. And if you like Metal Gear Solid, you got to play it. And then finally, the last PS2 game, Jak 2. So 2 years ago, last year, I remember I played the first Jak game, and it was a lot of fun. But Nefarious West warned me that the second game was pretty different than the first one. So I kind of was hesitant to play it. But I finally sat down and played it, and, you know, it's pretty good. Definitely not as good as the first one. But now I'm excited to check out the third game in the series. And next we got the Nintendo Switch. First game is a digital-only game that I just beat. It was actually the last game I beat in 2021, and that's Hugh. So Hugh is a platformer, but it's all based on color. So you start in this gray world, and you're trying to find your mom, and you unlock different colors. And every time you unlock a color, you can change the background to that color. So if there's an obstacle or block or something that is that color, you change the background to it, and that disappears. So you use that to puzzle your way through the game, and then you eventually, I think you get 8 colors. So then the puzzles get more and more interesting. There's eventually lasers you have to watch out for. There's also almost like ink that can turn blocks different colors to help you get through different sections. It was a very fun game, very short, probably 3 to 4 hours. Obviously longer if you want 100% it, but it's just a very relaxing, fun puzzle platformer. Next one we got was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So I feel kind of cheap doing this one, just because when I play Mario Kart games, I always start at 50cc and then work my way up. You know, obviously all the CCs are basically different difficulty levels in Mario Kart games. So I don't consider beating it needing to beat every single CC. But generally, you know, like I'll play through them all, but I only beat it on 50cc so far. Actually, I got it for Christmas, and I beat every single race in 50cc that day, just throughout the day playing it here and there. It's fun, but for some reason it doesn't seem as memorable to me as the other Mario Kart games. None of the new levels are that great. I felt like the old levels that they used, they kind of changed in ways that I didn't like. You know, you remember playing them from your childhood, and you remember each course a certain way, and then they change something about it. You're like, that's not how it's supposed to be. This kind of bothers me, but I think it'll be a lot more fun when I start playing it with friends. And we've got Goosebumps the game. I was a big Goosebumps fan growing up, and so I got these games for cheap. This was a point-and-click adventure. I don't like point-and-click adventures, but I didn't know that when I bought it. But I made it through. It's okay. Not really worth playing again. Then we got Goosebumps Dead of Night. This is more of an action game. So obviously Slappy gets out, and you need to find all the pages of the books to put him back in. And it's pretty fun. A lot of the book enemies came back in. Like you got the Beast from the East, you've got a werewolf. It's pretty fun. There's not really combat. I guess in the last section you get like this ray gun that you can from Tesla, that you could blow up these gummy bears. It's pretty cool. Still not a great game, but definitely better than the point and click adventure. We got Zelda Link's Awakening. So I absolutely love Link's Awakening on the Game Boy. So I was like, let's play the Switch version, and it's good. It's a fantastic Zelda game. I don't love the cartoony look of the characters. I don't think that looks great, especially the fuzzy edges. I know it's supposed to be kind of like a dream, so all the edges of the screens are fuzzy, and that just kind of bothered me. Obviously, the more you play, you kind of just zone that part out, but I didn't think that was very good looking. Next, we got Tiny Barbarian DX. This is actually one of the first Switch games I ever bought, and it's been sitting on my shelf, and I played it briefly. I was like, let's go and play it. And it's a lot of fun. It gets, it's somewhat tough towards the end, but it's still a pretty good action platformer. Makes you feel like you're playing an old school 16-bit video game, so it's good. Then we've got Ori and the Blind Forest. I heard great things about this game, and I was not disappointed. That game is beautiful. It's so much fun. Definitely some parts are tough, but it's one of those games that, you save off enough, you get checkpoints enough that when you die, it's not a huge deal. But it's very good. I'm really looking forward to playing Will-O-the-Wisps. And then finally, this is a Cartridge Club game of the month, and that is Wonderboy the Dragon Trap. And what's really cool about this is you can switch back and forth between the Master System version and the modern version with the graphics and the music and stuff. And such a fun game. You find different animals to change into. They all have different powers. And it was an excellent game. Not very long. You can get through it pretty quickly. I definitely highly recommend that game. All right, next up we got the Game Boy, which I beat 12 games for. First one we're going to talk about is Jurassic Park. My uncle had this growing up. I played it here and there, but I never really got that far. They got to the Triceratops part in the first stage. And I finally was like, I played the second game. I was like, I want to go back and play the first game. And it's pretty fun. It's not great. There's some one-hit deaths in stage 5 that are super annoying. And then that Triceratops stage is super annoying. It's kind of hard to avoid them, especially since you're trying to save Timmy. And if Timmy gets trampled on, you lose health. If you get trampled on, you lose health. But Timmy's always following behind you. And some of the Triceratops are very close to each other. And so you have to just time it right. And it's kind of annoying, but it's not too bad. And then the game I actually played right before that was Jurassic Park 2, Chaos Continues. So this is kind of like a action platformer, but you have a gun to shoot the dinosaurs. This game is very easy, definitely easier than the first game, but it's really fun. I really enjoyed it. You basically have to go through each level and find all the security cards to unlock the next level. And all the boss fights are dinosaurs. They're very easy boss fights, all have pretty easy patterns to see, and it was a lot of fun. Next, I've got Ducktales 2.
Got your ass. Incredible! The D-1000 has defeated, but I'll have the last laugh. I'll sink this ship and all the treasures on board.
So I love DuckTales on the NES. I obviously do not have DuckTales 2 on the NES because that's super expensive. But I have had this game for a while, and it's pretty much a straight port of the NES game. Obviously, there are some differences, but a pretty easy, fun game. It just plays like DuckTales on the NES. If you like that, you're gonna like that game. Then again, another game part of TMNT month was TMNT 3 Radical Rescue. So I grew up with the first 2 Game Boy Turtles games, but I did not have this. So fortunately, BGM sent me this one, and it's a lot of fun. It's almost like a Metroidvania style game. So you start off as, I believe, Michelangelo, and you have to go find your other turtles to save them before you go save Ariel. I think, or Ariel? April. Why did I say Ariel? Guess I got a Little Mermaid on the brain. That's what happens when you got toddlers that want to watch Disney movies all the time. But really fun game. The last boss is kind of annoying, but it's a good game. It's probably the best game in the series on the Game Boy. Next, we've got Navy SEALs. So I got this back from Video Games Monthly a few years ago. I was like, I just kind of want to play it. It's a run-and-gun shooter. You have to save a certain number of hostages in each stage while the enemies are trying to attack you. Overall, it's pretty fun. It actually gets kind of tough towards the end. Next, we've got Donkey Kong Land 2. So I grew up with Donkey Kong Land on the Game Boy, and it's not great. But I wanted all 3 games in the series on the Game Boy. This one almost feels like an exact port of the Super Nintendo game. Obviously, they can't do as much with the levels that they could in the Super Nintendo, but it feels like the Super Nintendo game. And they did a much better job with this one than the first Donkey Kong Land game. And then following that one up, we do have Donkey Kong Land 3. So this one is kind of in between the first 2 Donkey Kong Land games. It's very similar to the Super Nintendo game, but obviously different in other ways as well. Not all the levels match up. But they still did a nice job with it. Both those 2 games are much better in the first game in the series. And next we got Kirby Block Ball. This is just a breakout clone, but each stage you get different power-ups to do to get through certain areas. It was pretty good. I did not 100% it. You have to basically get like the high score in every single stage in order to unlock the final world where you fight King Dedede. And I didn't like it enough to do that. I'm not really a high score chaser. But this one that I've had for a long time, and it was nice to sit down and play it. Then, those of you that know me know how much I love the Adventure Island series, so I finally got the Adventure Island games on the Game Boy, so I had to play through them. So first you got Adventure Island, which is a port of Adventure Island 2 from the NES. And they did a really nice job with it. This is definitely easier than the NES version. Obviously, they can't have as many enemies on the screen. The boss fights aren't as difficult. So this one, I think I sat down and I beat it in a couple hours, where it took me in the NES game, I think 7 hours to stream it. But really fun game. So I had to follow that one up with Adventure Island 2, which is a port of Adventure Island 3 from the NES. Now this one is definitely harder on the Game Boy than the NES. The problem is they kind of zoomed in too much. So you can't see as much that's coming, so enemies kind of jump up on you. It seems like there's kind of like some blind jumps here and there. It's still a very good game, but the NES game is better. Next we've got Castlevania Adventure.
There we go. There we go, guys.
This was the last game I streamed for October Spooktacular. I've always heard that this game wasn't great, but I liked it. I didn't think there was really anything wrong with it. It's pretty short. Obviously, the game moves pretty slow. But for a pretty early Game Boy game, I thought they did a pretty good job with it. And then the final Game Boy game I'm talking about, Darkwing Duck. Port of the NES game, like a lot of Game Boy games were. It's very good. It's definitely easier than the NES game, because same thing with like the Adventure Island games. They can't do as much on the Game Boy with like they could on the NES, especially with your screen being so small. But it's fun. If you like Darkwing Duck on the NES, you got to play the Game Boy version.